I'm posting from a throwaway because my ex-wife still stalks my main account like a starving raccoon. If she sees this, good. She can choke on every syllable. A few years back, I was the kind of guy who believed love conquers all, and that a court would never rip a father away from his kid without proof of wrongdoing. Turns out, love is fragile, and courtrooms believe bruises, even ones painted on with concealer. Vanessa and I met in college. She was intense and beautiful, the kind people orbit. I proofread her papers and remembered her mom's birthday. We married after graduation, bought a modest house, and 3 years later, Luke arrived. I worked at T. She raced up the ladder at Caldwell and Company, a supply chain firm ruled by its founder, Richard Caldwell. The first crack appeared when her new promotion demanded 80-hour weeks. She hired a personal trainer, went vegan, and carried 2 phones, one company iPhone, one family Android. Luke and I had Lego cities and Saturday pancakes, but her signal kept dropping. One November night, I found her in the garage, mascara streaked, deleting photos off her phone. "Work drama," she said. Next day, she left for an overnight summit. That summit became routine. My gut started stalking my thoughts. Phone records showed hundreds of texts to CC. I confronted her. She went nuclear, accusing me of digital spying, insecurity, emotional manipulation, buzzwords she knew cut deepest. I backed off, guilt-tripped and confused. 2 weeks later, officers woke me at 2 a.m. They served a temporary protection order. Vanessa alleged I'd slammed her into a doorframe and threatened to kill her if she left me. The officers apologized. My record was spotless. But they still escorted me to a motel because family court defaults to caution. My first night without Luke felt like drowning in dry air. In the morning, my lawyer friend Marcus read the paperwork and muttered, "These statements are copy-pasted from a domestic violence brochure." The pictures she'd provided showed faint yellow bruising on her biceps. I asked how old bruises could look so fresh. Marcus shrugged. Judges aren't forensic experts. For 90 agonizing days, I saw Luke only in a supervised visitation center that smelled like stale goldfish crackers. Vanessa arrived in athleisure, no bruises visible, smiling sweetly at staff. She acted like a martyr, hugging Luke theatrically and whispering in his ear while side-eyeing me. My heart imploded each session. I could have rolled over, signed a custody deal, and rebuilt later. But every minute away from Luke carved out another piece of me. I needed proof, something irrefutable that she'd lied. That's when memory served the garage scene back to me. The deleted photos. I logged into our cloud backup. She'd disabled auto-sync months earlier, but a few stray thumbnails survived. One showed Vanessa in a dim hotel room mirror wearing lingerie I'd never seen, capturing a kiss on her neck from a tall blonde guy. Metadata, taken the same night as her first summit. I reverse image searched his distinct forearm tattoo and found his LinkedIn. Carter Caldwell, Director of Logistics at Caldwell & Konu, grandson of Richard. Office romance classic. Cheating alone wouldn't undo the abuse lie, but it poked holes in her terrified spouse persona. I dug deeper. Luke's daycare had exterior cameras pointed at our driveway. The night she claimed I assaulted her, they captured her leaving the house unmarked at 9 p.m., driving off, and returning at 1 a.m. with 2 grocery bags. No limping, no clutching bruised arms. I paid for a time-stamped copy and stored it off-site. Next, I requested itemized pharmacy receipts under our shared insurance. 2 days before her restraining order filing, she'd purchased a stage makeup bruise wheel and extra-strength concealer. Probably wrote it off as cosmetics. It was like she wanted to be caught. Hubris is a brutal auditor. Still, family court is biased toward caution. Judges might say my evidence only proves she cheated, not that I didn't hit her. I needed a detonator that would crater her credibility publicly, forcing the court to pay attention. That detonator was Richard Caldwell. Richard is a self-made multimillionaire who preaches integrity so hard the company handbook reads like the 10 Commandments. Office gossip says he once fired his own nephew for expensing a strip club dinner. His son Paul had died in Afghanistan, leaving Richard with one heir, Carter. The golden boy could do no wrong, until now. I compiled a dossier, screenshots of their sexts, hotel bills on the corporate card, selfies with Carter's arm in our bedroom, the bruise wheel receipt, and the daycare video. My cover letter read, "Mr. Caldwell, your heir and my wife are lying, stealing, and weaponizing abuse claims. Please investigate." I saved everything to a flash drive. Richard hosted a charity gala each spring. Tickets cost more than my mortgage, but volunteers worked free. Marcus's sister ran the auction and owed me. In a black apron, I fetched champagne while Vanessa and Carter laughed in designer gowns. When Richard slipped into his study, I followed and left the envelope on his side table. No words exchanged. 2 days of silence. I was packing for another motel week when Marcus rang, voice buzzing like live wire. "Turn on Channel 8. The local news showed Caldwell and Compte's glass headquarters and a scrolling chyron. CEO's statement on misconduct allegations. The anchor read Richard's prepared remarks, condemning ethical breaches and announcing an internal investigation into both Carter and Vanessa for violation of company fraternization and expense policies. They were suspended without pay pending review. That same afternoon, Richard called me directly. His tone was ice cracking on a pond. He thanked me for bringing grave misconduct to his attention, apologized for my family's turmoil, and, most importantly, asked permission to forward my evidence to the district attorney handling perjury cases. He needed no permission, but I appreciated the courtesy. Without income, Vanessa defaulted on the short-term lease she'd taken after moving out. She tried to park at her sister's, but her sister had toddlers and didn't want police drama on the front lawn. While she couch-surfed, our custody hearing date approached. Marcus subpoenaed daycare footage, insurance receipts, and her corporate expense logs. We secured sworn statements from 2 colleagues who'd overheard Vanessa bragging that false abuse claims tipped the scales. In court, she looked diminished. Designer suit traded for off-the-rack, hair pulled tight to disguise stress shedding. Her lawyer argued my vendetta proved I was volatile. Marcus countered with forensics, the makeup purchase, the timeline from daycare, and Richard Caldwell's affidavit describing her systemic dishonesty. The judge paused proceedings to watch the driveway video twice. The gavel echo still lingers in my head when I remember the moment she realized the charade was over. The judge vacated the restraining order, granted me sole physical custody, and ordered Vanessa to attend counseling before seeking unsupervised visitation. He referred her case to the district attorney for perjury investigation and cautioned that intentionally false allegations could result in jail time. She wept, but I felt nothing. You can't mourn someone who tried to erase you. My motel key still sat warm in my pocket, reminder of the nights I missed Luke's goodnight songs. Now Luke came home holding my hand as though afraid this dream would flicker out. We spent that evening building a cardboard castle, labeling towers truth and justice in crayon. He didn't grasp the symbolism, but someday he will. Vanessa's spiral accelerated. Caldwell and Company demanded repayment of fraudulent expenses plus damages for reputational harm. Carter, cut off and jobless, blocked her number. She attempted a GoFundMe titled Survivor Mom Starting Over that raised $63 before donors saw local news pieces about false allegations. Landlords Googled her name and declined applications. Eventually, she sublet a friend's studio across the state line and started delivering groceries. People ask whether I feel guilty. I feel relief. She loaded a gun of lies and aimed it at my relationship with Luke. I merely turned on the lights so everyone could see the shooter. Last week, Luke and I passed the Caldwell building downtown. A new banner read, "Integrity means everything." Luke asked what integrity was. I said, "It's when your actions match your words." He nodded and returned to his dinosaur toy, but the phrase stuck in the cab's quiet. I keep the envelope's original letter framed above my desk, not as a trophy, but a boundary line. If anyone ever threatens my son's well-being again, they'll find out how sharp the truth can be. People on Reddit love a happy ending. Mine is quieter. Luke's bedtime laughter, the absence of legal bills clogging my mailbox, and the knowledge that the system can be forced to open its eyes if you push hard enough. Revenge wasn't a single moment. It was every sunrise that Vanessa woke up to the consequences she scripted for me. When I tuck Luke in, sometimes he asks why mommy can't see him alone yet. I tell him adults make mistakes and must fix them before earning trust back. He accepts that. Kids understand fairness better than grown-ups. Vanessa called last month. Voicemail. She's working on herself and wants to discuss co-parenting. She emphasized forgiveness like a televangelist. I saved the message but haven't replied. Forgiveness is not a price Luke should pay. If she completes counseling and a judge says supervised visits resume, I'll comply. That's not forgiveness, that's law. The space in me where love for her used to live is now a vault, door welded shut. Some nights I replay the lowest moment, walking out of my own house under police escort, Luke's dinosaur pajamas visible through the upstairs window. The memory doesn't make me flinch anymore. It just fuels gratitude for the present and vigilance for the future. I'm not naive enough to think karma works on autopilot. Karma needs a driver. If you're reading this because someone framed you, gather facts like they're oxygen. Lies hate daylight. Courts will squint, but they can't stay blind forever. Vanessa's trial date on perjury is set for next month. Marcus says she'll probably plead to a misdemeanor to avoid jail, but the conviction alone will shadow every resume she submits. She'll call that unfair. I call it balanced books. Luke and I are repainting his room tomorrow. He picked sky blue because superheroes fly. He asked if I'd paint a hero on the wall. I told him real heroes don't need capes, they just keep promises. We'll trace his handprint in the corner instead. During the limbo period between my ejection from the house and the gala, I lived in a bleak loop of motel vending machines and Zoom consultations. Reddit forums on false allegations became my curriculum. One thread taught me how to request my cell tower geolocation history. Another recommended discreetly recording every interaction with the accuser, since single-party consent is legal in my state. I bought a pocket recorder and treated it like a rosary. I spoke to a therapist, too. She said divorce grief before betrayal is an open wound. After betrayal, it's an amputation. Heal, but never the same. My parents wanted to mortgage their retirement cottage to fund a legal dream team. I declined. Money wasn't our shortage. Evidence was. Marcus and I mapped Vanessa's timeline like detectives pinning yarn across a corkboard. Every lie she told forced another to cover gaps. She claimed bruises yet never visited a doctor. She insisted I broke her phone, but the device warranty report showed no damage claim, Each contradiction was a loose thread begging to be pulled. One night at the motel, I reread Vanessa's sworn statement line by line. She wrote that I'd prevented her from calling for help by cutting the landline cord with wire cutters. Small detail, but we haven't had a landline since Luke was born. The judge hadn't noticed. Neither had her lawyer, who probably copy-pasted boilerplate language. That realization injected adrenaline into my veins. If they couldn't keep track of technology that outdated, what other anachronisms had they missed? I filed a FOIA request for police body cam footage from the night of my removal. The video showed officers politely asking Vanessa to describe her charms. She rolled up her sleeves, no marks visible. She told them bruises developed later. In court photographs, however, they looked days old. The timestamp mismatch was another domino. Marcus floated the idea of hiring a private investigator to tail Carter. I vetoed it, not because of cost, but because scandal handed to a father from an outsider looks like revenge. Scandal verified by the father's own eyes looks like betrayal from within, which stings deeper. I wanted Richard Caldwell to discover the disease spreading inside his company, not feel spoon-fed gossip. The hardest part was staying outwardly calm during supervised visits. A court-appointed counselor watched me interact with Luke through a two-way mirror. Vanessa tried to monopolize his attention, offering new toys at every drop-off to make me look boring. I chose consistency. Same bedtime story each visit. Same promise that Dad would always return. The counselor later wrote that I demonstrated stable and nurturing presence under stress. That single sentence dismantled half of Vanessa's claim that I was emotionally volatile. When suspension letters hit their inboxes, Vanessa called me from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Her tone vacillated between fury that I would ruin her career and desperation that we should unite for Luke's sake. She never mentioned love. The word had expired for us, soured like milk left out. I forwarded the voicemail to Marcus. He replied with a giddy string of lawyer emojis. Richard's ultimate hammer stroke came via a press release 48 hours before our custody hearing. He announced a zero-tolerance campaign for dishonest conduct, coupled with a sizable donation to a domestic violence shelter, the same cause Vanessa had exploited. Reporters devoured the irony. Social media dragged her with memes comparing her bruises to bad contouring tutorials. I should have felt pity. Instead, I felt vindication for every hour Luke cried into a scratchy motel pillow. Carter attempted damage control by proposing to Vanessa on Instagram Live, claiming love conquers cancel culture. The live stream peaked at 200 viewers, most of whom spammed clown emojis. Richard responded by freezing Carter's trust fund until his 30th birthday, citing poor judgment. Carter deleted the video, and the engagement sank faster than his credit score. In pre-trial depositions, Vanessa's attorney tried to paint me as a jealous ex sabotaging her livelihood. Marcus slid the daycare footage into evidence like a royal flush. Opposing counsel's face reddened when the timestamps contradicted Vanessa's handwritten narrative she'd sworn to. They requested a recess that lasted an hour, likely to strategize pleas. Recess ended. Marcus entered the pharmacy receipts. Vanessa's attorney whispered, "No further questions." Between sessions, I found myself alone in the courthouse bathroom, staring at the mirror where fluorescent lights highlighted new gray streaks in my beard. I expected a surge of triumph, but felt only exhaustion. Revenge isn't a spike of euphoria. It's a slow exhale after endless breath-holding. The district attorney's office invited me to give a victim statement regarding Vanessa's perjury. I described the motel after smell of bleach, Luke's nightmares, my lost overtime pay. The prosecutor listened silently. then said perjury cases rarely go to trial. They end in plea bargains. I said a misdemeanor conviction was fine. The public record mattered more than jail. On the day the judge rendered custody, Vanessa's parents sat behind her, faces pale as blank paper. They'd believed her. When the judge detailed the evidence of fabrication, her mother started sobbing so hard, the bailiff fetched tissues. I remembered every family barbecue where she'd praised my parenting and wondered if she'd apologize later. She hasn't. That night, I messaged Richard Caldwell a single sentence. "Thank you for believing the evidence." He replied, "Truth stands on its own." Strange how an 82-year-old CEO turned into an unlikely ally. Luke's adjustment has been smooth, but I'm not complacent. We have weekly sessions with a child psychologist. She says kids are resilient when one stable caregiver remains. I intend to be a granite wall. Vanessa's GoFundMe update last week blamed patriarchal corporate politics and vindictive ex-spouse. Comments called her out. The campaign is now locked. She tried nannying, but background checks flagged the pending perjury charge. Last I heard, she delivers app-based groceries in a neighboring state. Her miles-driven repaying debt she once thought beneath her. Some might argue I destroyed my son's mother. I disagree. She detonated her own life. I only exposed the wiring. Accountability isn't cruelty. Someday, when Luke is older and Googles our names, he'll read court documents. I'm already drafting a letter for future him, explaining how truth sometimes requires confrontation. I won't sugarcoat my anger, but I'll frame it. Anger as fuel for justice, not chaos. In every Reddit revenge story, commenters ask for updates. Here's the ongoing one. I wake up, pack Luke's lunch, and the sky, though I promised not to mention weather, feels big again. That's enough.